Japanese life is minimalism, or so the world thinks. Buddhism and Shinto encourages a serene, simple and uncluttering lifestyle which translates well to anime. The protagonist often ignores all vices, living a monk-like life to fulfill the end goal. Yet no sports manga has profited from this model better than boxing. Hajime no Ippo and Ashita no Joe are hailed as masterpieces, featuring on top 10 lists and retaining relevance to this day. So why does boxing encapsulate Japanese minimalism so well? And why does it resonate so heavily amongst the current younger generations? As a Westerner, I'll be covering both my own experience with the show, alongside why I believe the Japanese are so culturally drawn to it. Also, please do leave a like for the algorithm. Back in 1968, Ashita no Joe truly captured the beauty of minimalism. Joe Yabuki, a young drifter, wanders the empty night streets with only a small satchel of possessions for comfort. Having enjoyed a soda, he seems present, looking admiringly up at the dark sky. In spite of having nothing, Joe lives in the moment, gaining immense joy from the simple act of shadowboxing. As a Western viewer, the satchel reminds me of a bindle, a carrying device stereotypically used by the American subculture of hobos, and heavily associated with the Great Depression. Yet, despite the depressing connotations, Joe appears unfazed and content, finding solace in boxing shadows. Later consigning himself to his trainer Danpai's tiny boxing gym, Joe's perseverance in such a dingy, uncomfortable space confuses many.
Yabuki 君は寂しくないの。同じ年頃の若者が街に、海に、山に青春を謳歌しているというのに。Yabuki 君と来たら来る日も来る日も汗とワセリンと松ヤニの匂いが漂う薄暗いジムに閉じこもって縄跳びをしたり、柔軟体操したり。Why
not go out and enjoy the lavish lifestyle? But Yabuki is simply not interested in fast cars, partying, or material goods. He commits to one course as the sport makes him feel present and alive.
俺ちゃんの言う青春を謳歌するってこととはちょっと違うかもしれないが、俺なりに今まで燃えるような充実感は何度も味わってきたい。血だらけのリングの上でさ。
The notion of others disapproving of Joe's simple life reminds me of a similar scene in the movie Perfect Days. The film follows Hirayama, a public toilet cleaner in Tokyo who finds solitude in his structured and repetitive life. When his successful sister appears, she asks in a judgmental manner, "So this is where you live?"
本当にトイレ掃除してんの
But while she's obsessed with status symbols and material achievements, Hirayama revels in the simplicity of his routine, playing cassette tapes, photographing trees, and entirely living within the moment. Like Joe Yabuki, this so-called mundane process, like boxing training, gives him life and feeds his spirit, regardless of the material possessions at their disposal. The artist Leonardo da Vinci once stated that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Hajime no Ippo portrayed this concept through modest training methods throughout the show, whether that be simply refining jab speed through catching falling leaves, squatting in fast-flowing streams to develop stability, or chopping wood to build back muscles. No fancy equipment, only seeking natural elements. From a Western perspective, I immediately recall the Rocky IV training montage. Ivan Drago has cutting-edge technology at his disposal, which accurately refine his reflexes and power. Balboa, on the other hand, is compelled to recruit the outside elements, sawing logs, pulling sleds, and skipping. The montage alone embodies the selling power of the sweet science as, to improve, you don't need expensive equipment or insane facilities. When compared to other sports, it's extremely accessible. If anything, it's so accessible that you may just be crafting yourself into a fighter without fully realizing. Prior to even slipping on boxing gloves, the protagonist Ippo Makanuchi was unknowingly cultivating his power, hauling heavy fishing coolers at dawn, pushing boats against the tide, and balancing on shifting waves while carrying crates. Considering this, imagine an individual that feels stuck in a manual labour role, stressing and straining under loads day after day. Yet, despite the pain, you realise that the burden could be pushing you towards something, providing a means of escape. In the West, we have seen this time and again. Take Mickey Ward, the American who fought an insane trilogy against Arturo Gatti. He maintained a construction job throughout his boxing career. Now, there's something romantic about a man slowly refining and chiseling his physique, therefore preparing him physically for the struggles of the ring. In Western Christianity, gluttony constitutes a sin if the excessive desire for food leads to a lack of control over one's relation with food or harms the body. With obesity rates skyrocketing in many Western nations as people consume without producing any outputs, Japan seems to stand in stark contrast to that. They show discipline through selecting minimalist healthy options devoid of excessive fat or sugar. In this sense, at least from a Western perspective, they have learned to control the mind, refusing to give in to temptation. As Takamura rises from his singular mat before descending into a mixture of shadowboxing and grappling with intense hunger, we get the sense that he will sacrifice it all, luxury and comfort, all to achieve the unthinkable, winning a world title. I love the scene as it doesn't glamorize the life of a boxer, it's tough and incredibly mentally draining. Yet there's something amazing about two young boxers shacked up in one tiny room, but each on their way to being emancipated by greatness. Takamura's struggle doesn't glorify weight cuts, in fact, he slowly descends into madness, pushing himself to obscene lengths. But the writers expertly use the struggle as a parable, pitting minimalism against opulence and greed. The sacrifice would serve Takamura well in his quest for the title, and it's unmistakable that Brian Hawke, acting as a microcosm of the West, serves to embody maximalism. Simply put, there's something quite inspiring about a person achieving so much with so little. No handouts, just hard work. Returning to the late 1960s and 70s, Ashita no Joe was effectively described as the Bible of college students, as Joe represented a problematic hero showcasing the struggle of lower class children and pupils. But the minimalism of the show was especially relevant. From 1955 up until the early 1970s, Japan had experienced an economic miracle, with heavy industries and the expansion of the middle class driving the boom. Yet the 1973 oil crisis and an inflation in real estate value swiftly halted the growth and worsened living standards for many. Goods became more expensive and lower class people were ultimately forced to adopt minimalism. They had no choice.
ブスブスとそこらにある見てくれだけの不完全燃焼とはわけが違う。ほんの瞬間にせよ眩しいほどに真っ赤に燃え上がるんです。そして後には真っ白な灰だけが残る。
Like Joe Yabuki, people had to find pleasure outside of material possessions. When thrown in prison, deprived of any material comforts or hope, Joe retains his good humor and fighting spirit, underlining how, wherever he is, his surroundings do not define him, and many suffering economically likely took solace in this. In the West, this message was echoed through avenues like Fight Club.
What? The things you own end up owning you.
This naturally appealed to the mavericks of those days, which weren't consigned to one specific country. Essentially, therefore, Ashita no Joe thrived off the suspicion and anger towards the establishment. But what about more modern day? After all, Hajime no Ippo aired in October 2000. Its incredible popularity since suggested deep resonance with more recent generations. Yet the truth is slightly more complex. Louis Zhao's video describes Japan as a low desire society. Though they often have the money to buy products or assets, they simply choose not to.
But when you give money to Japanese people, they don't buy anything because they don't want anything. They don't invest it either because they are risk averse. So they mostly end up saving it as cash.
Whether that's out of nihilism towards the system or utter detachment from their work, making the monetary rewards seem unfulfilling, it's hard to say. Regardless, the simplicity and minimalism depicted in a boxer's lifestyle as portrayed in Hajime no Ippo somewhat aligns with this movement, with the core message being a lot can be accomplished with a little. Unlike the past, it's not the allure of gold and wealth drawing people to boxing, it seems. It's instead the moral redemption and absolute clarity achieved along the way. The Western situation is more partisan, in my view at least. In England, society has become more polarised in a materialistic sense. You have those who are desperate for wealth and luxury, deeming it as the ultimate status symbol, the watermark of success. Then there are those who reject materialism to varying degrees, preferring a strict adherence to principles and purpose. Both are driven, but simply by different things. Through examining Western anime forums and chaining motivational anime edits on Instagram reels, God, I need to get a life, something becomes evident. When combining the perception of mystic minimalism inherent within Japanese identity with the humble animated story of a pleasant Japanese boxer, you appeal greatly to the so-called minimalist section of Western society. Even if this minimalist idea is exaggerated by the West, it certainly contributes to the anime's popularity, in my opinion. But now I'd like to hear what you guys think. Are you a fan of anime? If so, which one? It simply confirms our stereotype of Japan and materialism. Admittedly, I do enjoy watching boxing mangas, but I actually prefer delving into the cultural impact and the important points it preaches, especially those associated with the sweet science itself. As Japanese boxing goes through somewhat of a golden age, with standout fighters like Inoue, Nakatani and Yabuki all gracing the stage, there's certainly points Westerners can take from Japan's mantra and training philosophy, and this may be applied to all walks of life, encouraging patience, passion and discipline. If you have enjoyed this video and would like more anime boxing based content, then let me know by leaving a like and subscribing. I actually just hit 30,000 subscribers, which is honestly incredible, so thank you so much guys. I'm both incredibly grateful and inspired, so I'm going to continue to grind content for you guys, so please just stick by me. All the best. Cheers.